So first off, we're just gonna take off this intake ducting, flathead on this side, flathead back here. Probably be easier with the stubby over here, but, and then this electrical connector, and this should disconnect from here. There's this connector here, and then there's a grommet underneath, so just pull up on this big box, and it'll separate. Let me show you. There's this right here, fits into a grommet hole. So getting the intake manifold off is gonna be a little bit of a chore. Whoever designed this didn't give you a whole lot of room to work with. So not the best design, a little frustrating, but we'll get it. So down here, that's too bright. There is that bolt, 13 millimeter. That's easy to get to with a ratcheting wrench. Then back there is another 13 millimeter. That's gonna be a little harder because you have that, I think this is for the AC, those metal lines are in the way. There's actually a metal bracket that's on that bolt that we have to pry off or get out of the way in order to get a ratcheting wrench on that one. So that's the frustrating one in the back. The front one is a little easier to get to. All these electrical connections and stuff like that, we just pull these retainers off just so we can get room and flex in there. And then there's the 10 millimeter bolts. There's two of them, one on that bracket and then one on the back bracket. We'll get those 10 millimeter bolts off, and this side is free. We have this right here we want to get off, and I believe that's it on this side. That's free. And then we come over to the passenger side next to the throttle body. We want to disconnect all of these electrical connectors connected to the throttle body. There's going to be two 10 millimeter bolts on top of this bracket. So there's one here easy to see, the other you have to feel for it, but it's back there. So two 10 millimeter bolts. Get some light back there. And then I can't really show you. Well, maybe I can. Let me see. So it's that bolt right there. You can feel it. There's an electrical harness connected to it. You want to pull that electrical harness off. Then you can get a socket on there. I believe it is 13 millimeter. So you want to pull that. We don't have to pull it all the way out, just enough so that bracket is loose. There's one up here. Can be kind of a challenge. And if you can't get to it on here, as we pull the manifold off or up and out, some of that stuff will be a little easier to get to. There's a hose up here we just pop off. Okay. All right, we'll pull our purge solenoid off back here. There we go. So that's out of the way. Pop this off here, just so it's a little out of the way for us. So let me show you. So I'm gonna be honest, I really struggled on this side, getting these loose. So you don't have to pull those bottom bolts all the way off. I don't know if I said that before, but just loose. So loosen those bottom, get this 10 mil off, and it's just out of the way. Same with this back one, just out of the way. Loose is all you have to do. Because when we pull this up, we don't want it to snag on these brackets, so just enough. So now we can get to these 8 millimeter bolts. I believe there's 7 of them, and there's gonna be a hard one right here in the back, but this doesn't come out of the way. You can't really move anything. You just have to get it with a 1/4 inch little socket and a little ratchet, just enough to get in there, a little bit at a time, and that'll come off. So that's our next step. Then this can come up and then out, and we'll get some of those more connections and stuff in the back as needed. It's just getting stuck on this bracket back here. There we go. It's a little better. Okay, there's a hose back here. I can pop off. Big fat hose. And then this electrical connector I couldn't get to before. Pop that off. There we go. Up and out. Pull this out. Now I promise you, life does get easier once that manifold is off. If you're doing a Chrysler or Dodge, Town & Country or Grand Caravan, that transverse engine, it's actually a lot easier to pull that manifold off than on this. And really the biggest problem is that they just have the engine so far back and this so low that it's hard. If it was just a smidge forward or this was a smidge higher, man, life would be great. And then of course all the AC stuff on this side is just a pain, but either way we got it. Let's put some rags over the intake. Don't want anything falling inside. All right, next is getting our valve covers off. So this electrical harness here, we just want to pop off everywhere that it has a little, I don't know what you call that, little attachment point. We just pop those off, get this loosened out of the way. We can just pull that out of the way like that. I want to disconnect all our ignition coils and our injectors. And that'll get this harness completely out of the way for this valve cover, and then we'll pull our coils. Those are 10 mil. So it looks like I didn't record this part of it. These are our variable valve timing solenoids. They need to go back on in the same order. So right here you see they have marked RE, RI. You can mark yours the same with letters, RE, RI, or what I like to do is put a tick mark starting from the far left. So 1 tick on the far left, 2 ticks next one over, 3 ticks next one over, and then 4 ticks for the last one, starting from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then when I put it back on, I know that order of assembly. Because that is important. You don't want to get these mixed up or crossed with a different one. All right, so then we want to pull off our cam position sensor right here at the T30. For that, we'll pull it off. This whole thing just pops out of its hole. We'll want to pull this hose off. That's a PCV. Oh, let's see if I can do it. I might need 2 hands, but there's also 3 more T25 bolts holding that on. It'll look kind of similar to what we did on the front here, only it's just a different mechanism for the PCV system, kind of like a PCV valve right there. So 3 more bolts there. Otherwise, this valve cover will not come off. It'll hang up. You'll see that when we pull it off. But yeah, so that's what we have on this side to do. Again, still got to pull these off. And I believe this side will be done. This was kind of hard to get off, but just, you know, use some muscles and it'll come off. This, I don't think it's in the way. If it is, we'll get to it, but I really don't want to. And then over here, again, electrical, all that's out of the way. We'll want to pull this off completely from the back. This does not have a PCV thingy-majig like that other side does, so we don't have to worry about that, just on that other side. This one does not have it, but we do have the cam position sensor that we'll want to pull off, and just this tube right here that pulls off. And I think this side also is ready to pull off. So that's the cam position sensor. Just has a center bolt, will come off and then just pop it up. So this back hose is a little challenging to get to, or pull off, I mean. So I'm gonna use an angled pick just to get in between the rubber and the nipple, just to break it loose. Let's see if that helped. Come on, buddy. The next method is with just a little angled pry bar, just enough to get under it. Maybe that'll pop it up. Just being careful not to break the plastic nipple. Oh my gosh, there we go. You should be able to feel, there's an electrical connector also. Let me see if I can. So I think there's just 2, not 3 bolts, but just 2 bolts. And they should be T25. I'm gonna have to climb up on the car real quick. It's a little harder to get to than I want it to be. So there's this harness here is actually connected to that PCV, and it's just in the way of that bottom bolt. So let me, so I just took my pry bar, pushed it on that little retaining clip, and just pushed, and it popped out. So that gives us enough room. Where did I put my ratchet? I wish I could show you, but there's no room back here. Okay. Got the bolts. This should pop out. There we go. Ugh. So that's what it looks like, and it is just 2 bolts. Has a nipple, so it goes up like that. So 8mm for the bolts. All right, so this should be ready now to pop up. What am I missing? What am I missing? I think I got all the bolts. There we go. There. Whew. There's one valve cover. Just a clean rag will get all this surface wiped down. So I want to make sure that none of this grit goes in the engine. That's why we're wiping from the inside out. Just to the best of our ability. If there's a lot of dirt or a lot of grit, what we could do is take a vacuum cleaner and suck the heavy stuff off before we wipe. This engine actually doesn't look too bad at all. All right, plastic scraper, link in the description if you want to purchase one. We just want to peel off as much of this silicone as possible. Just getting that old silicone off, the old RTV. Doesn't have to be 100%, but just as much as you can. So our old RTV has a nice good metal surface to attach to. So there should be 4 spots, 2 on each head, just where that timing cover and the head meet together. You don't want to use a metal scraper because you don't want to gouge our surface here. We'll take a fresh rag with some brake clean or carburetor cleaner. We'll want to clean really good where that RTV was, getting any oil out of that spot. Just do that in all 4 places. We got new valve cover gaskets and new spark plug seals. So this is how we're going to change the spark plug seals. Take a screwdriver and you just put it on the side of it and they should pop right out. Very little effort. And they just pop out. So this is the trick I use for getting the seals back in. The same socket you used for the cam phaser, if you notice the top of the valve cover will have the spark plug holes and then ridges on either side. Those are reinforcement ridges. Your socket will be just the perfect size to span over the top of both of those. We'll flip it over. So that's on this side what you want to use as a backing, as a support. So let's just set that aside for now. On your new seal, you put a little silicone paste. Doesn't take a lot, just a little lubricant on the outside of it. Just rub it around. This will just help with insertion and we'll set it in. So just set that there over the top. Then you have another socket, the exact same size. This is 1 1/8 inch. That'll just fit right over the top of that seal and you tap it in. And you just want to double check it. You can flip it over and see if it's seated all the way. Like this one can go in just a smidge more. Doesn't take a lot of force. And it'll bottom out. And there we go. That should come out. We want to pick off any of that silicone that's on the plastic cover too. Get that off. So it should only go on one way. You're just pressing it in. All the way around. There we go. Perfect. So that's it, ready to go on. We'll go ahead and do our other one as well so we have both of them ready. All right, that's it. We'll go ahead and put our silicone on here. For the RTV, I'm using Right Stuff 90-minute gasket maker from Permatex. Use whatever brand you like. I like this stuff because it cures really quick. I'm just putting a little dab right on that seam. Doesn't take a whole lot, just enough to cover the seam. As you put the gasket on and tighten down the valve cover, it'll squish. All right, I believe that's good. Now on the spark plug tube seals, let's see if you can see it. You just want to put a little silicone paste as a lubricant. on each one so it slides over that spark plug tube. I'm just using silicone paste as a lubricant. So not silicone RTV, but just a lubricant paste. They're different things, but they're both silicone based. All right, we can put it on. You just want to make sure as you put it on, your gasket doesn't snag on anything and rip or tear. Looking good, looking good. I'm just gonna feel with my hands underneath the valve cover, make sure the gasket's still in place. All right, feels good. We'll hand tighten these just to get them started. All right, we'll snug these up. Put the other side on before the RTV gets dry on us. Same thing, just a little silicone paste. Just helps it slide over better. So just like the front, I'm gonna feel around and just make sure the gasket didn't fall out. There we go. Snug those down. Now these are torqued to 106 inch-pounds. So my gasket kit actually came with new seals. Last time they did it, and they only came with 2 out of the 4. But this one came with all 4 of them, so I'm gonna change them out. But Dodge says if these look good, go ahead and reuse them. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm changing them out just because I got the new ones, might as well. And then we marked ours, so they should go right back in their place. And these only need to be snug. Filler neck back on. And just so you know, this too should have a gasket set inside here. So it's not set on the valve cover, it's set on the little PCV valve. All right, let's put this pane back on. That should slip in. All right, we'll pull our gloves off for that bottom one. That's the hard one. Oh man, I dropped it. It's a tiny little bolt. Problem is, it's in a tiny little spot. Yay, got it. Now we can put our cam sensors back in, and then you just have to wiggle the bolt until you feel it on its spot. All right, I think that's pretty much perfect. Put that on, put this on. We'll put this hose back on over here. Ignition coils can go back on. Now if you're almost due for spark plugs, that would be an excellent time while the intake manifold's off, because you'll have to take the intake manifold off in the future to change them out, so you might as well do it now. A little silicone paste on the tip of the coil boot. That can go in, and it acts as a lubricant so the boot can come off the plug easier in the future. That's what dielectric grease is for. It's also a water protectant as well. It does not conduct electricity, so it doesn't help conduct, but it helps protect. Just snug, doesn't have to be crazy tight. All right, we can plug our injectors in, and then our coils can get plugged in. Perfect. Put our harness over here on where it goes. This goes on here. We can plug in our valve timing solenoids. Okay. Do that over here too. So I believe we're ready for our manifold. If I'm not mistaken, let's just take a look around. Put this on while we're here. Put this back. All right, we're ready for the manifold. We want to wipe the bottom of our manifold off. Make sure that surface is nice and clean. We want to put just a little silicone paste on our rubber. Somebody told me it helps with the rubber and keeps it conditioned, lasting longer. Whether that's the case or not, I'm not sure, but I know it doesn't hurt. All right, now here's a trick on these manifolds. When you flip it over, the bolts want to come through, and that'll prevent you from getting it on right. So tip it over, come underneath, and back it out a couple turns, and it'll get stuck. And now they won't fall out. Okay, so let's put this in. Watch the wiring harness. And these hoses, some of them we'll put on right now. At least this back one. I think there's just one hose we need to put on. It's easier now than later. All right, perfect. Then the other hose is easy to get to later. Make sure your thing's in the right place. That's set in pretty easy. Get a couple of these things started. Now these are 106 inch-pounds, just like the valve cover gaskets. All right, so from here, all we have is to button this side up. There's one hose we can put in, really easy to get to, like that. These electrical connectors, see one of them swings all the way around and plugs into that back sensor. So that could have been done before we put the manifold all the way back, but I believe I can still get to it. All right, that's plugged in. All right, throttle body plugged in. Okay, so we have this bracket back here we can put back in. It's the two 10 millimeters and then that 13 in the back. So I did take the 13 mil all the way out just to get that bracket back on its upper 10 millimeters. It's like if they just gave us 2 more inches, that's all they needed to do. 2 more inches. Like this whole engine, look how much room there is in the front. They could have given us 2 inches. There we go. Okay, put the 13 back. And we'll put that harness back on the end of that stud. There we go. Okay, cool. This side's buttoned up. We'll go over to the other side. So on this side, we just have those 2 brackets. Plug those in, or bolt those in, I mean. 10 mils go on pretty easy. It's those 13 down below. I don't know if I told you that in order to get the AC line away from that stud enough, I just used a pry bar to pry that off. I don't see any, oh my gosh. Ugh. I don't see any other way to do it. Okay. And then we'll plug in all our electrical stuff. So that's pretty much it. I'm gonna button this up. I'm changing out the purge solenoid and this tube right here that broke. We're gonna go ahead and replace that. So I have the parts here already. I'm gonna do that off camera. It's just a couple of connections and that comes off.